And so that's one of the ways to do that as well, is to make sure you're keeping track of that, and fill it out. I mean, we use what we call like for agents, we have a capper list is what it comes down to. And so instead of that capper list, if you just take a spreadsheet and put January through December on it, and then let's just say you want to close 24 units in a year, so then you got 2 in each month, and then just yellow it out or put a color in that box whenever, or put the name of the address or put the address in there, so that way you can go and you can look at it, because you're going to have some new construction and that's not going to close until June, right? So obviously, oh great, I only got to get one in June. I've got one that's closing here in March, and put them in there, and then where you need to work. It's a quick look, and you can just look at it, and if it's color coded, it's even easier yet. It's like, all right, I can count them up. Some people put houses on the wall and color them in, like what's one of the things I used to do is take houses, and when I went under contract with them, I'd outline the house, and then when I closed it, I'd color it in. And so that way I could just look at it and go, all right, I'm at 12, I need to be at 18. Where am I at? I always knew where I was at. So do things like that, so that you know exactly where you're at. I know yesterday during the top 20%, the other thing we talked about, and I was talking with a guy that's way smarter than me last night, and we had said that, hey, after the first of the year here, all of a sudden we feel like there's been an uptick in activity. And one of the things that he reminded me of is it's like going for a walk. I know Edie and I talked about that, or going to the gym or riding the bike. If we haven't done it in a long time and all of a sudden we get on it, it feels like we did a ton of activity, right? It feels like, oh my God, I'm lifting weights and I've maxed out, right? But if I lift a lot of weights, I can continue to lift more weight. But if I'm just starting out, I'm not lifting much, but it feels like I'm lifting a lot. I think that's what's kind of happening here right now too, is I know, Ryan has said too, that he's got a ton of new applications, but really when we kind of dove into it a little bit, he's back to normal. And so when we haven't had anything in October and November, and it was slow the way it was, any uptick in business feels like it's like, whoa, and the human brain's that way too, right? So be careful with that. Don't get complacent. I guess that's my message here this morning also, is that we can't get complacent with, just what we've seen so far. We got to continue to lead gen. We need to get people in our database. We need to be communicating with those people. We need to be doing open houses, getting new people into our database as well. We need to be doing whatever we can to get people to come towards us. Because I'm confused by it. I'll be honest, because, everybody's been talking, this, I don't want to say doom and gloom, but this guy here, again, way smarter than I am. And he's still thinking that this same thing with this recession, that it's going to be a little bit worse than what people think it's going to be. And so I just want our people, you in particular, I want you to be prepared for that. So work hard, because that's the thing with the shift book, right? One of the things that he says in there is that you got to thrive, or you got to survive, and then you'll thrive. And if we're not working hard now, and this thing does move a little bit on us, goes lower, that means that we're going to have to double or triple our efforts. So, get into it. Go ahead, Terrence.
I came in, you were speaking to me exactly when I jumped in on the call. As far as knowing what's coming up in the year for your numbers, I've said I was going to do it before. I've done it for 2 months. That was the longest I've done it in 1 year. But I'm going to have on my dry erase board to the right of my desk written every month and my projected commission for that month. Mapped out. That way I can always look at it. Now I know what I have in January. I know what's coming up in February. I think I've got one in March, and then there's nothing. So I got to start filling those, so that when I get to those months, there's money coming in.
Yeah. Exactly. And if some people, if you don't want to do the board thing, number one, you can get into your database. The command keeps track of it as well. I mean, that's the other thing also is on that first page, it's got it right there, year to date. How many leads do you have? What's your annual goal? How many appointments do you have? What's your annual goal? How many under contract? What's your annual goal? How many closed units? The annual goal is there, and the GCI breakdowns right there. So and the reason why they put it on that first page is so it's a reminder as well. So, use whatever. I don't care. I mean, like I said, I'm a visual person. And so I'd probably do what Terrence is going to be. I want to be able to see it, because if it's on my computer, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? But if you're using command, it will update this stuff for you. Did you raise your hand again, Terrence? Nope. Okay. So, and then by the way, as long as I got everybody here, we've got people jumping in here, is on February 1st, we're going to be doing a database day. And so we're going to have stuff going on all day. I know we're going to have Ignite. We're going to have Power Hour in the morning starting at 9. Then, of course, Ignite. And we'll have a lunch sponsor here that day. We're going to do a database workshop then that afternoon. And so we're going to give away prizes and things along those lines for the person that enters the most people into their database. The person that cleans up their database the most. I said we'll give different types of prizes out. And then Ryan doesn't know it yet, but we're having a chili cook-off that night, and he'll be bringing some adult beverages. And so we'll have our chili cook-off, and it'll just be a celebration, right? So, put February 1st on your calendar, and just plan on being here all day. And in particular, and the other thing is just bring your list of people, and we're just going to call them, and we're going to verify. I think who was it? Was it Edie, or who brought up the fact that if you sold a house to your client, that you got to make sure you update them in the database to their new address?
Yeah, that was me.
That was you, Edie. And by the way, that's a great piece of advice, because it's
guilty.
Guilty. Yeah.
Like I was sending out my magnets for January 1st for my magnet calendars, and I have decided to ask my daughter to try and take on the role of virtual assistant. So she was going through my database, and she was writing out addresses, and we were sitting next to each other in Starbucks while we were doing it. And all of a sudden I looked over, and she had somebody's name on there. I was like, oh snap, that's not the right address. I sold them a house this year. Hold on, we got to get. And she's like, oh, you need to clean this up if you want me to do this. I was like, okay. So just word to the wise, when you have people close, you got to make sure that you put the new addresses in there.
Yeah, so that's just some of the things you need to do. I mean, there's maintenance that you have to do to the database. Let's just put it that way. And so that's what we're going to do. And of course, since Keller Williams has told us that if you've got 201 people in your database, then you're most likely gonna you have the possibility of making $120,000 if you do everything the right way. The other thing, if you want to do it, and we can do it right before that as well, is we could sit down with you, and it might be something we'll add here, is that we'll do the economic model with you, and maybe we'll do that at the next team meeting. But somewhere along the line here, we can sit down and do the economic model. How much money do you want to make? And then we figure out like your cost of sale, which is going to be $18,000 most likely for most of you. And then our expenses, we'll take that out. And then we know exactly how much money we need to make in order to pocket to take home the cash that we want to take home. And then we'll break that down into how many appointments you need to have, or how many contacts you need to have. And then we can put that number then goes into the database. Like we were just practicing this morning on that. And in this particular case, for the amount of business that this agent wanted to do, they needed to have 467 people in their database. And so they had 90. So now they know that they need to get another, 350 or something like that, 370 people in that database in order to hit their goals. And so we can do that as well. If you don't know how many people need to be in there, we can do that. But remember, it's usually about, at this point, probably about a 6% conversion rate. We could possibly take it up to 10, but why not have a few more in there? That way you're covering yourself. So again, if you needed to have, if you wanted 24 deals, you probably need to have about 240, 300 people in your database, right? Or 400 people in your database, sorry. Again, let's sit down and figure that out. The bold law says that business is simple, it's not easy. That's true. And the other part of this is that it's a numbers game, right? So let's just do that. Terrence?
A couple of weeks ago, speaking of the database stuff, a couple of weeks ago, I gave you guys 3 texts that my coach and I were sending out for the end of the year. He and I talked yesterday. We're going to do another thing starting on Monday, where it's 2 calls and a text. On next Friday, I will give you guys that stuff if you want to use it for your database.
Lots of iPhones on here today. iPhone 3, iPhone 2.
One more thing while I have the floor. If you're like me and you're not very technologically advanced and you have a laptop that does not have a solid state drive, it will save you so much time and frustration if you get a solid state drive. And I just went to, I got them replaced on both my laptops this week. Best Buy has their solid state drives on sale for half price. It was like $29 for a 500 gigabytes drive. And the thing it does is when you turn the computer on, you're not sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. It's just a lot faster. So it can save a lot of frustration.
Just get an Apple.
I was going to say it. If you get a Mac, it'll change your life, Terrence.
I've got an iPad. That's as close as I can get right now.
No accessories needed.
If I hit my goals this year, I might think about it.
So what's happening in the mortgage world? How are we doing with interest rates and things along those lines?
Rates are compared to like the fall, they're great. They're great. The bond market's not really doing much this morning, but most of the rates I'm quoting now cost just a teeny bit of points to get to a 5 handle on a 30-year fix. The real rate is somewhere between 6 and 6.1 right now. So either at 6%, I'm charging somebody $200 or $300, or at 5.875, at 5.875, I'm charging a few $100. At 6%, I might be giving them a few $100 in lender credit. That's kind of where they're at right now, which is delightful to see. Quoting rates that start with a 5 instead of a 6 or a 7. The whole debt ceiling thing, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of drama coming up over the next few months, with the markets, and the bond market will react to the stock market a little bit. So, and then the Fed will be bumping rates up again on our chili cook-off day. I think it's February 1st is when the next Fed meeting happens. And I think a lot of people are talking about them bumping them up another quarter point, but who knows?
All right, so they're going to be going up. That necessarily isn't a bad thing. And of course, they always have that cooked in supposedly into what they're looking at if they have an idea of what the Fed's going to do. So we were talking about these mortgage applications here. One of the other things that I was reading also, folks, is that if you've got somebody that you did sell a house to back this fall and they've got the interest rate in the 7s or the high 6s, you may want to mention to them that they can refinance, because refinances are kind of they're, and I don't know if you got the numbers in front of you, Ryan, or not, but refinances are going up as well right now just because of where they're at.
Well, part of that, I think, is because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are implementing these rule changes on cash out refinances that go into effect, I want to say March. It's always weird because it's not necessarily when the loan closes, is when they start buying the mortgages, but it just makes it more expensive to do a cash out refinance. So I think that's bringing forward a little bit of that, where, you know, people are talking about it, and those mortgage originators are going back out there and letting people know, it's like, hey, you know, this money's going to cost you a quarter point more in a month, just based on these adjusters that Fannie and Freddie charge that make them more profitable. And the whole deal was they were supposed to take that money that they're making off of cash out refis and allocate it more for more programs to alleviate some of those hits to pricing on first time home buyers and really high LTV, you know, to help people buy homes. So it's not necessarily a bad thing unless you're wanting to do a cash out refi. But I think that's bringing forward a little bit of demand right now. And there's a lot of people with credit card debt, right? That's the other thing we hear in the news. It's like credit card balances are back up there pretty high. So that might be the other piece of it, because as the prime lending rate goes up, the Fed funds rate goes up, so does credit card rates.
Big numbers.
Big numbers.
Yeah. And there's going to be some, you know, I think Ryan and I were talking about this as well, and I'm sure you've heard this in the news before too, but the number of people with a car loan that are paying over $1,000 a month. What was that number again, Ryan? It was something ridiculous.
15% of people that took out a car loan in 2022 had a payment over $1,000 on a new car, and it was something like 5 or 6% of used cars had a payment of over $1,000 a month.
So as things are shifting around here and people are trying to, I mean, the car industry, they're already seeing the shift there, you know, because interest rates have gone up and people can't just even afford the car anymore. But one of the things that some of these experts are talking about too is that when you have that car payment, you got this house payment, you got some of the stuff going on, you know, and I think it already has. And of course, we've talked about this before, is that when defaults, if you want to call it that, or bankruptcies, whatever you want, repo, yeah, all that kind of stuff. And even with the houses, right, when they default on their mortgage and so forth, you know, they said that REOs, basically, if you want to call them that they went up something like 30%, but they were at zero. You know, they were basically at a zero. So going up 30%, it sounds like it's a lot, but in the end, it's not that many, just because of the fact that we've been so low with them. But they are coming back, right? That's the thing. It's something just to maybe brush up on if you haven't looked at that, and you might run into that when you're talking to your clients and stuff like that. What does that look like when they're in a short sale or something along those lines? So, Edie.
I was just wondering, what is the average REO in a regular market as far as numbers? When they say that it goes up 30, but with COVID, everything was in forbearance, so there was none. So like you were saying, going up 30% sounds extreme, but I don't know what the average number of REOs in our area are. Like, I don't know anything about REOs. I would like to learn something about that.
Less than 1% nationally. I don't know what InfoSparks has got in there, but it's got to be even less than that in the triangle.
I'll look here real quick. Who's driving around in a Bentley?
That's one of Darren Brothers' clients. He's got a Bentley and a Rolls. Lives in a $5,000 a month apartment in downtown Durham.
Apartment?
Yep. Not for long. He's under contract.
REO lender owned. Yeah, it hasn't really even clicked up that much. There's 20 homes for sale right now that are REO.
Out of like 1,500.
Yeah, something like that. 11 are under contract, closed 10. Yeah. $233. But it's something that they had mentioned though, too, that they thought that the forbearance stuff is all finally ended, and it's something to look at. But the other thing to look at too, folks, is expireds. Expireds have been going up, and that might be an area that you can get a listing in. And as we were talking about earlier here, listings are super important, right? I mean, without a listing, there's nothing that goes. And we looked at the numbers last week, and of course, our listings for December were as low as they were since 2012. And so that's the difference between this market and like the last market at this point in time too. Before, we had a days on market problem, right? We had enough houses, we were able to sell them, but they were on the market and gone. And so of course we had a basically auction, for every house that came on. Well, now if we got people coming into the market, like we're talking about here, we're getting back to average, we just don't have the inventory. So that could be an issue kind of moving forward. But and I think I posted it in the Facebook page, Jeff, I think it is Jeff Glover, is doing like a free, I think it's on the 24th, but he's doing a free coaching session, if you want to call it that, on how to get more listings and how to carry inventory. Because it's something that we're going to have to do. I mean, we've got everybody on here. Anybody who's got a listing at this point has probably had to hold on to it for probably 30, 40, maybe 60 days at this point, maybe even longer. So we need to understand what we need to do, how we need to market it, things along those lines. It's all a little bit different now. So jump on that, and check it out. It's free. Now, in the end, he's probably going to try to get you to join his coaching program. But there's nothing wrong with having that conversation. Usually give you one free coaching session as well. So take advantage of it, use it. All right. What do you guys have right now? What's going on out there? What are you feeling? What do you need help with? Everybody's good? Making money hand over fist?
I want to say thank you to being able to mastermind with folks as far as dilemmas with listings. Yesterday, I was able to mastermind with you and Terrence and Wendy and Tim, and came up with new possible ideas of how to go ahead and try and work a difficult situation with the listing that I have that, fingers crossed, will not fall out of contract for the second time. So put them into place last night, and hopefully we will see some action as far as trying to get backup offers. But I really appreciate the input and the suggestions. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you for, coming forward with that stuff too. We all learn from that. So thank you. All right. I've got a question here from iPhone. I'm running into a lot of people that want to buy, however, credit not good and wanting to fix it to be able to. Mr. Ryan, what do you got for that?
Well, I'm gonna have to read that again. I was more laughing at you. I'm running into a lot of people who want to buy, have credit not good and wanting to fix it to be able to. Well, I think the number one thing I would say to that is, and I tell people all the time, they're always apprehensive about having their credit pulled by me or somebody like me, because they know their credit already sucks and they feel like having another inquiry is going to pull it down more. And I always tell people, what they can see on their own credit through Credit Karma or, whatever Credit Wise or other apps that's out there. It's not going to give them a true mortgage credit score. And, probably 9 times out of 10, if they think they're at a 620, they're probably at lower than that on a mortgage credit score. And, but we don't know until we see it, right? And that's not always the case. And I always tell people, like, look, if your credit's jacked up, my credit inquiry is not going to do anything to make it more jacked up. It's just going to be an inquiry on your credit. And once I see your credit, then I can give you some good pointers, some realistic advice on things you can do right away to improve that score. And, for my agents, the number one thing I can do is let you know, because I have a real good sense of like, yeah, this is something they can get fixed in, 30 or 45 days, or, hey, it's going to be a year. So how much effort to put into that lead at that point. And Wendy had somebody come meet me in the office. She didn't want to do an application online because, it wasn't secure according to her son. I was like, well, that's fine. Come on in my office. We'll do it together. But I said, forewarning, I'm going to type it in on the same website you do it on. And we did it yesterday. And, the poor lady, her credit's in the 400s, and she has a slew of late payments up through January of like this month. And I was like, realistically, there's no way to get her credit score up 170 points, in 2 or 3 months. I told her, I was like, let's plan to repull your credit in January of next year. Get out of the short-term lease, go ahead and do 12 months. And then and here's your game plan for the things you need to do. And I couldn't give her any of that advice, just knowing what her credit score is, or just her telling me she had a late on something. So I'd say the number one thing is just let me look at it and give them as advice. And then I just kind of give you the down and dirty on what I think a time frame is.
So get them to the mortgage professional. That's the number one thing. Edie, did you raise your hand again?
I did. I was going to just back up exactly what Ryan said, because I had clients earlier this year that wanted to get into a new apartment or a new house, and we weren't sure exactly what they wanted to do. And I sent them to Ryan, and he very patiently and politely told them that they're in no shape or form ready to go ahead and buy a house. But at the same time, I was able to go ahead and build up a relationship with them, that I'm putting them in a new rental. I gave them a book for Christmas on the first time home buyer book. And they have made steps after Ryan had the real conversation with them as to what they needed to do, because they're starting a family. They want a house. They need to take steps. And over the next year, I'll keep touching them. And next year, their credit will be better, and we'll be in a better place to hopefully make another plan.
It's a great question and good answers, because you're planting the garden, right? We always talk about that. There's some people are seeds, and other people, they're ready to basically kill, you kill something, or ready to eat. So you got to have both, right? You got to go hunting, and then you got to plant the garden. So just because somebody comes back and they don't have good credit, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to buy at some point in time. But in the end too, Ryan, you got access to, if it's really bad, you got access to like credit specialists and things like that, right?
Yeah, I don't refer them out very often to those folks. They just tend to kind of come and go, it seems. It's not an industry where people tend to be in it for the long term. But yeah, there's always somebody I can refer to when they just simply don't have the time or the willpower to do it by themselves.
Who was the gentleman that you brought in here that day?
Oh, well, that guy's the rep for the company where we pull credit reports. He's doesn't do that kind of stuff. He's our rep, and oddly enough, he's Justin's rep as well.
We should probably bring him back in again.
Yeah, that was a good seminar.
That was probably about a year ago, wasn't it?
It was like June or July. Yeah. Yeah.
Coming up on a year. Yeah, we should probably get him back in again.
You
We
know,
got
and
obviously a lot of new people.
me sitting in his presentation in February of last year is when I learned something that, like, I feel like I should have known, but I read stuff every morning and it just somehow had not been presented to me that, you know, the whole thing with medical collections dropping off of people's credit reports if they paid them off. And that's been huge for me, you know, like, I mean, it doesn't always work out like I wanted to, but I had a guy pay off a medical collection last week or 2 weeks ago. It was like under $100. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to be enough to get you, but he was at like a 604, 603 credit score, and it went up to 637. And I'd hoped for more, but you know, just paying off a little medical bill is under $100. You know, it bumped him up like 30, 32, 33 points, I think it was. And, you know, if somebody is at that cusp where it gets them to that next level, just having that little nugget of wisdom is huge.
It definitely is. And that's where we got to remember what lane we're in and who we are and what we do. You know, it's not our job as real estate agents to figure out their credit and do things along those lines. That's really, again, where the Ryan and the mortgage professionals come into play. Get them to help you. And if their mortgage professional isn't helping you, you know, that's why you got somebody like Ryan. You can bring him to, you know, then that's what he asked for, right? He just wants that opportunity to talk to these people. So always good to have somebody like that in your back pocket. You know, I think we all have different vendors that do different things, and they can do them really well, you know, and that's where, like for me, that's where Ryan always came into play, is I could take him to him and he could figure some things out. But I had one guy that I had that he specialized in people that had like 600 credit scores. I don't know how he got them, you know, basically qualified, but he could do it. And so if it made sense. Sometimes though, it was like one of these things where, you know, the ethical part of it, right? Does this person really need to be buying a home? You know, because are they just going to end up back in a place that they are? So that was one of the things I struggled with that. But it's something that
Well, the other thing is, you know, like this mastermind is important, and I'll share something that like could be, I'm not gonna say detrimental to me, but like I had somebody, one of my realtor partners, Patrick Madigan, he told me last week, he's like, hey, I got a client that didn't go with you. They went with Rocket because Rocket told them that they would use lease income on their primary residence to offset the mortgage payments so they can buy something else first. But it's not leased out and they're not going to have to show the proof of payment. And I'm like, that's straight out of Fannie Mae's rule book. That's not like some lender making up that rule. So I don't know how in the heck they're getting by with doing that. But, you know, Patrick's got a client under contract right now to buy, and he's going to do something with his house after he moves out. But, you know, Rocket's kind of making it, they're shoving it through somehow. And they're probably desperate for business right now because they kind of lost that #1 spot. So I don't know. But like, I don't know how they're doing that. I assume they're going to sit on the loan for a few months and then document it later and get it transferred to Fannie Mae. But anyway, it's weird. If I know about that stuff, I'll share it. I can't win every deal, and that's okay. You know, just keep getting the at bats and get what I can. Just like you guys, we're in the same boat.
That's right, loser. Question here, somebody wrote in, as a new agent, I'm finding I'm still having an issue with how to get a seller. I'm reading the books, just haven't found my lane yet. All advice appreciated. So my experienced agents and listing agents that are on here, what advice would you give this young agent or new agent?
Are you implementing what you read?
Great question.
What
You
was
don't
the question?
necessarily have to go after sellers, because a majority of buyers are also sellers. So you can go after the buyer and see if they have one to sell first.
Get out and do some open houses and truly work the open house.
What do you mean by that, Terrence?
Pick open houses in the price point that you want to be in and in the area that you want to be in. Don't pick open houses that are 45 minutes away from your house, because you really won't do it all out and truly go out and door knock and flyer and want to work those neighborhoods. And if people start seeing you regularly, you might get 2 or 3 open houses in one neighborhood in 2 or 3 months. Those homeowners are going to see you knocking on the door, and they're going to associate you with the listing. You will start posting social media posts about open houses that you're working. So these potential sellers are going to see that you're working open houses every weekend, and they're going to think they're your listings. So they're going to believe that you are the listing expert.
This individual just said yes, I think probably answering to Ian. Yes, just a little nervous. What do you got to say to that, Ian, if you're a little nervous?
Nervous about what?
Well, to be honest, I think this is Tony Adams. How y'all doing? To be honest, it's more so the fact that I feel like I'm still new to everything, so I'm more concerned with saying something incorrectly or presenting something incorrectly, and I want to make sure that everything I do is moved effectively. Well, I want to make sure that I'm effectively moving and speaking on behalf of what I'm doing without feeling like I feel like I have knowledge for what we're doing, because of course I went to the classes or whatever, but I haven't got the experience yet, and the experience is really your main factor for teaching. So it's kind of like, yeah, I read the books, but I'm still getting used to implementing what I've
So
read.
you're nervous about your conversations. Do you practice your conversations?
No, I have not really been practicing my conversations. I've kind of been trying to write up scripts and little stuff like that, just kind of giving myself a tip to kind of creating a template.
Yeah,
I'll be in here Saturday.
You just need to practice them.
Say
Go ahead,
again?
Ian.
You just need to practice your conversations.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Terrence.
I'll be in here Saturday making calls. Come in. We will role play any conversation you want to have.
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate it.
The other thing is too, is that we have those power hours at times, and that's a good time to come in and do it. You know, obviously Grant as a PC coach, you could work with him also. Find a partner would be another one, you know, just somebody to practice with. I mean, that was one of the things back when I first started, was Grant and I that, there you go, Nishette, Nikki's talking about there are script groups. But that's one of the things that Grant and I were script partners back in the day. So, and I know Ian, what's the group called?
National Scripts and Role Play, I think it is.
National Scripts and Role Play. That's on Facebook. And you got people from across the country. So there's people you can practice with that you don't even know.
There's 200 people in there typically on every day.
Okay, great. I'm definitely going to reach in. I'm definitely going to reach out into that and see what I could do. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah. And then that's right after James Shaw's thing in the morning. You know, he starts at like 8:10 with shift pivot ahead. And then right after that, they go right into into that script role play. But find people that you can work with. I mean, and by the way, you got a significant other, you know, role play with them, have them pretend to be the client. Terrence.
2 things. Aaron Wittenstein is back into scripting now. He's very good. I used to role play with him. You can find him on Facebook. He does open scripting where you can sign up, you go on YouTube and you make calls together. Also, you will build great rapport with your clients if you're vulnerable enough to say, that's a good question. I'll get back to you tomorrow with the answer to that. If you don't feel confident in something you're saying to these clients, don't say it and just let them know. I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, that's how I've been handling it. So, okay.
The other thing is too, Tony, is remember this, is that nobody else is going to know that you're making a mistake except for you.
And when you first start when you first start in sales, isn't it like 1 in 40 people want to hear what you have to say? So you might have, until you learn those scripts and get better at delivering them, those numbers come down dramatically to 1 in 10, I think, or could be better depending on your delivery. But so, try to have those 40 conversations until you know those scripts.
And then Karen had mentioned here, make sure you're plugging in at the office and take some of the trainings over and over. And that is true. That's part of the 6 personal perspectives and getting to mastery, is that you need to do things all the time. Ian here is awesome at asking questions, and he didn't just get there, overnight. He's been doing it, practicing it and doing it and just perfecting his craft all the time. So that's what you need to do, and by the way, get out there. It's okay to make mistakes, right? Again, nobody knows that you're making a mistake except for you. Like Terrence mentioned, if you don't know the answer to something, say, you know what, let me get back to you on that. I'll give you a call back, within the day. Just make sure that you follow up and do what you said you're going to do. They want the question answered, but they don't need to have it answered right now. And I know for newer agents, and hey, by the way, this is something that runs through all our heads, is that, oh, they're going to know I'm new, or I need to have all this experience. No, you don't. You just need to have good customer service.
Take it off your shoulders. I still do it now. When I do a buyer presentation or listing presentation, I show them the exact paragraph that says other professional services. And I let them know, hey, I'm a realtor. I'm pretty good at what I do. I'm not a home inspector. I'm not a plumber. I'm not a lender. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. If you ask me a question, I will reach out to those trusted vendors that I have and get you the right answer. It's in the contract.
All right, Nikki's question was, my question is how do you work with buyers that want a home, they qualify for a home, but only qualify for 200,000? Housing affordability seems to be a big issue with several of my clients. Anybody got an answer for that?
Location, location, location. So educate them in what they can afford, what areas that are in that price range. You're not steering them, you're just showing them what's available.
Yeah, if somebody's saying that I want to buy a $200,000 home in Raleigh, it ain't gonna happen.
Every home is affordable. Every home on the market is affordable. It's what can you afford? So affordable for them might be Spring Hope.
Yeah, or like Tim was saying, location. And what he meant by that is that, all right, you need to get out. You need to get away from, Raleigh, obviously. You may got to go to Dunn. You may have to go to Henderson or someplace like it. How bad do you want to own a home at that point? Or you're going to have to wait and, do some things. I mean, some other things that you need to do is, increase your revenue. So Ryan, what are some things that you would have to do in order to,
I have the conversation with people all the time. It's like you got this 21-year-old kid, and he's the one I was talking about that we got his credit score up a little bit. He's got money to put down. He's got 5% saved. And I said, well, about 220 is where you're at. And like you're not going to be able to find a place in Wake County, is my guess, at $220,000. So you either need to, I told him, pay off your truck, figure out a way to get more money and pay off that vehicle, and that'll allow your payment to be higher, or you need to save up more money for more down payment. I said the easiest thing to do is eliminate debts, and he's only got 2 of them, and one of them's $400 truck payment. So get rid of the $400 truck payment, and then you can buy a more house. So I tell people all the time though, you're not going to find anything in Wake County at the price point that I've pre-qualified you for. You got to eliminate debt, or you're going to have to look way further out. Those are the 2 options. At the end of the day. Yeah, buying down the rate will only get you so far.
right. So Terrence, thank you for pointing that out, that every house is affordable. It's just dependent upon what you can afford. And so that's the thing, is that, sometimes we have that champagne taste on a beer budget, right? And so that's the issue, is that, we're not going to live on Glenwood, and when we have a 620 credit score and we've only got a certain amount of money to put down. And the other part of it is that it may be that, again, you may have to get some additional income to come in. So that will increase your debt to income ratio and things along those lines. But that takes time then, then of course that's going to be, because what do you need, like a year, Ryan, of that, of proven income and things along those lines?
I mean, if somebody's taking on a second job, really the USDA is the only game in town after 1 year. It's really 2 years.
There you go.
That's not a quick fix.
Yeah, it's not.
It could be a stretch, and it might be a perfect situation. It would have to be, maybe it's a single person or just a married couple, and you talk to them about the potential of them owning investment property, and they're younger. They could buy that house a little further out, get themselves in a better situation. Now buy a house closer in, and that be a rental. And now you're helping them out grow with their finances overall. And that might be something that would make it to them feel worth, okay, if we move out here for a year or two, now we can get the house we want and have a rental. That sounds so much better.
That's a phenomenal idea, because they can do 0 down or 3% down or 5% down, live in it a year or two or whatever, then move in closer when their income is risen and put down only 3% or 0% or 5% again.
Thank you.
And chances are, if they're moving further out, from what I've seen with Ryan's program, once it's out of Raleigh, most of the houses that I've pulled up qualify for PATH.
Also, maybe they need to widen the horizon on going from site built. Maybe they need to also look at manufactured homes if they're not move out of a certain area.
I mean, even the manufactured homes are getting expensive, right? I mean, Taylor's got somebody going to look at one today that's $265.
And you've probably answered this before, but does the PATH loans qualify for manufactured homes? I didn't think so. Okay. I have a client that's looking at manufactured homes, and their budget is $185. I know I'm torn on that client.
Yeah, it's a sad story. I see it every day.
I think Karina has something coming up soon on that price point.
You just have to ask them, have you seen a home that fits your budget in the area you want? And they'll say no. And say, okay, then we're not going anywhere.
Repeat that question again, Ian, please.
Have you seen a home that you like in the area that you like that fits your budget? That's what I would ask them. And they'll probably say no. Then you just say, okay, well, we're not going to go look at houses today.
Is that your subtle way of telling them that they need to look someplace else?
Yeah. Or change their criteria. Go get more money or change your location. Something's got to change.
No.
Did you say Ian and subtle?
Yes. I'm glad you picked up on that. The other thing I'm going to say with that too, and like I said, I don't want to sound overly optimistic, but it goes along the lines of what Terrence is saying, is that there's a house out there for you, and it kind of goes to what Ian's getting at. Then also, it's just not going to be in the area that you may want it to be in, and so then it's like, you know, how badly again do you want a house? I mean, that go to motivation. You know, sometimes you got to go there, and you know, find the price points that they have, and then show them where they're at. You know, here you go. Here's the list of houses that are, selling for $200,000, and here's the locations that they're at. I can't change that. I can't, as a real estate agent, we can't do anything about that. That's what the market is telling us, right? I can't change, what the price of the house is in downtown Raleigh or in Fuquay or in Cary. That it is what it is.
You can also go ahead and take a look at condition. Because I had a person last year that needed to be in a specific place and a specific price point. And we went for one that was sitting on market for 60 days. And when we walked in, the condition was such that we could offer less. And I put him in contact with contractors that were able to get him within his budget to what he needed.
I think Tony just said here too, your first home doesn't have to be your dream home. And that's true. And honestly, I think Ryan says this all the time also, how many people are actually going to live in their home for more than 5 years? We make a living on referrals, but we also make a living on the fact that people are going to be moving out of their house between 7 and 10 years, right? And so it's a stepping stone. I'm buying this house for 200,000. And then, 7 years down the road, I'm buying a house for 300, 350. And then another 7 to 10 years down the road, I might be buying a house for 400 to 500. You got to remember, people in their lifetimes are going to buy 4 or 5 homes. They used to do that. And Terrence, I think you probably remember it in Bold. They used to do that thing where they'd show you how much one person, what they're worth in a lifetime. And it's like over $1 million, because if they're buying their 4 or 5 homes and then they have family, because if they have kids, then next thing you know, you're buying their kids' homes, you're buying their friends' homes, they're buying your coworkers. And
it was either 8 or 10, 8 or 12. Those two numbers are popping up in my head.
Yeah.
Transactions from one person that you truly stay in touch with.
Yeah. So I know that we want it now, but I think everybody here will tell you that, we all started out. I mean, my first house I sold was 135,000. The second one was 85. I can remember selling my first house over 200,000 and going, yeah. And then of course you get that first $400,000 house, so it does increase, but it increases because of and like Terrence was saying too, who are you working with and what areas do you want to be in? And again, if you want, how did they put it at one point in time? If you want to increase your price point, then increase your customer service.
And when you say that, I still think of Tanya.
Yeah.
That from the workshops that she did for us, her presentations about how she stays in her sphere and the gifts that she gives them and the things that she gives them. That's why she's at the price point she's at.
And hang out with people that make more money than you.
Exactly.
I do.
So Ian, I can go to lunch with you today.
Ryan's buying.
As I say, we can all go. Actually, we should all hang out with Ryan.
There's the plan. I got to start with Ian first. I'm not to
We
that
should just
level
all
yet.
go sit in his office, and we'll it'll rub off on us.
We can cut my sandwich into quarters. Be a diet too.
You got the ham today, or you got turkey? Which one did you bring
Roast
today?
beef, man.
Roast
$5.
beef.
$5. I had a good December. I got roast beef.
Hey, Brian, I don't know if anybody's got, because it looks like a pretty good price on new construction. Matney at Magnolia Park has 5-bedroom new construction, 2,600 square feet for $490. And it looks like a nice plan. I just saw it.
5-bedroom. Yeah.
Yep.
So speaking of that, has anybody got a house out there they need to sell, or do they have one that somebody needs? You got somebody that throw them out here right now before we go.
Terrence, can you send me that information for that house? Can you text it to me or
Yeah.
email it to me?
Yep.
Thank you.
I also have a
also-
5-bedroom in Nightdale that will be going live. It's office exclusive right now. It should be going live on Friday. 2,600 square feet, wired workshop, new fence, $475.
This is kind of random, but I just really wanted to thank Ryan for helping my family get my parents' house closed. We had a lot of hoops to jump through, and his team was extremely helpful. And we're greatly, greatly appreciated and very blessed. And so thank you very much, Ryan, and your team for helping my family.
You're welcome, and thank you for putting up with us too. That was a tough one. Did your sister get writer's cramp at closing?
She was like, do I have to re-sign it like this every time? Josh was cracking us up, but also, and thank Becky, because I mean, she went to go, she was our witness while we were doing the will and power of attorney. And it was so hot in the nursing home that she passed out. So I accidentally put quite a few of us through the ringer on that one.
Ashley's buying lunch.
Yeah. Once I get that commission check, I'll definitely take you to lunch.
All right, before we go, February 8th, James Shaw is in town here. I will warn you that the ticket is $125. But he's here February 8th. That's from 9 to 4, somewhere in that area there. Again, February 1st, we're doing the chili cook-off. We're doing the database thing, and Ryan's providing some adult beverages that day. So we're going to have that going on the 1st. I believe that probably the ALC is going to be around too. They're going to be recruiting you to jump on their team. I encourage you to get on a committee. This is your market center, and so we want you to be involved with it, and just let us know. And that's how we do this. We do this through the committees. We do it through the ALC, and you do it through those committees, and you basically come back and say, this is what we need. This is what we want. This is what we're looking at. Some of it's to grow the market center. Some are for social committees. There's a safety committee. There's numerous ones, you know, and top of you can be on more than one as well. And so we really encourage you to do that. Looks like Tony's got an open house this weekend, 6:59 in Garner. And go ahead, Ian.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, I think I unsubscribed somehow from the office's email about what they have upcoming.
Sure.
How do I get resubscribed to that? Because I don't know about anything that's coming on. And if Ryan's having beverages, I need to know about this.
All right. Well,
I just learned about that 30 minutes ago.
You got voluntold, huh?
We get voluntold. That's right. Yeah, I'll figure it out on the email side of things, what we can do to get you back in.
All right, thanks.
And we'll look at that. But let's see what else is going on here coming up. Obviously in March, we're going to have the award ceremony. They're working on that right now, where the location is going to be. And I'm just trying to think what's coming up here in the near future. I know we're going to have a open house panel that people will do. And I think it's going to be Rania, Edie, and Terrence, since they're doing theirs at a high level. And the only other thing I want to say before I go as the BIC now is that if you're putting stuff out on the internet, you got to make sure that it's not a blind ad. And so you just always make sure that people know that you're a real estate agent. And if you're sharing something from somebody else, you got to give them credit for it. Now, if it's a house from Keller Williams Platinum, you just got to say that listing provided by KW Platinum. But let's just say you got a friend that's at another firm and they say, hey, go ahead and market my home. You got to say listing provided by. All right. And then you also need to make sure that KW Platinum's on there someplace as well. so that the commission, or if somebody was to get into trouble, that they can figure out where you're working at. And if you go out on Facebook, you're going to see a ton of blind ads out there right now. Nobody's doing it, and I can almost guarantee you that that'll be the next thing that they crack down on. Number two, and I know that it's just being repeated over and over here again, but you got to make sure your square footage is correct. Do not take square footage off of the tax records, and do not believe what was in the MLS the last time. We just had, and thank goodness this person didn't get in trouble, but they were off by 700 square feet. So my recommendation is that I hired people to do it. It costs you like $100. Have them come in, get it done, get it measured. So have that done by somebody so that you don't have to worry about it. Tim, go ahead.
So recently I got a friend request, and it was from somebody that is a member of investigations for the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. So they sit on the committee that investigates the different complaints. I went ahead and accepted it because, hey, I'm cool with that. But just be aware.
I was gonna say, what did you do wrong, man?
Well, I think that's part of what they're trying to do. They're starting to friend request people, and that way they can look at what you got going on Facebook.
Yeah, so they can see it. So I can see that coming down here. They haven't talked about it in a while, probably in a couple of years. And that's usually what happens, right? They don't talk about it, and then all of a sudden they come and they start slapping people's hands. So those are just a couple of things. They're easy to do. You don't have to worry about it, but just be aware of it. And if you got questions about the blind ads, come and talk to myself or talk to Grant if you're in the PC program, because he was the BIC before, so he understands what it is as well. So if you're doing open houses, things along those lines, I know Tony mentioned that, and you're putting something out there, just make sure that everybody knows that you're a real estate agent. Let's put it that way. All right. Thanks for being here. Appreciate all of you. Love you. Have yourself a great day. If you need anything, give a holler. And we will see you next week.
Thank you, Myron.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I got a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
I still have not received my business cards or my sign.
All right. Have you talked to Becky about that? I know there's a bunch of signs that just came in here the other day. I didn't look to see what was there.
Sorry about that. I was saying, yeah, it may very well be at the office, but I didn't know it would get mailed there. I wasn't sure if it was being mailed there or to my home.
I think they usually come in here as far as the signs go, the sign goes, and then even like the business cards.
Okay.
But I'll run up there and check, and I'll have somebody give you a holler. Okay.
All right. Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Yep. You're welcome.
All right. Yeah, have a nice one.
You too. Have a good day, everybody.
Brian,
Yeah.
I actually have a real quick question now that you brought it up about the square footage.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a realtor friend that happened to, and the listing agent didn't want to. They were, I guess, saying they were argumentative. They were pushing back. So she pulled her buyer. But in a situation like that, should the buyer's agent had reported the listing agent, or do we just pull our buyer and go our separate way?
The buyer should probably report it. It has more weight. You can report it as well, or as us as real estate agents, we can also. But if they didn't have it measured, or if you know the square footage is off, that's something that can be reported. And there's nothing wrong with that. And especially if they're going to be argumentative and they're going to push back on it and stuff like that, then I would say, well, you know what, go deal with them. But
Okay.
the commission in particular, of course, they're there to protect the consumer. So if the consumer reports it, it has a little bit more weight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Have yourself a great day. See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.